of you. You're coming to the last days of your 17th General Chapter. You have a new leadership. I congratulate Superior General Mother Sandra and her team. I also understand that you had lots of blessings yesterday from the Holy Father. And I know these days were synodal days for you. You were making a synodal journey to plan for the next 6 years. And I'm sure you're going to continue to walk the love of Jesus, in the love of Jesus crucified. You're going to deepen your desire to make God known and loved. And you have decided to deepen your desire to please God and God alone. And you have also perhaps decided to live joyfully and humbly your consecrated life in the communities. I read from Saint Magdalene of Canossa, one of her sayings to the sisters. She said, "May your missionary life be humble, removed from all kinds of powerful means and human wisdom." Am I correct? She said it. Your missionary style be humble, removed from all powerful means and human wisdom. Now, applying the scriptures that we listened to this morning to the charism of your congregation, to the sayings of your foundress, I make 4 reflections with you. First of all, the theme of your General Chapter invites every member of the Canossian family to be reconfigured to a life of holiness and for the mission today. The first reflection I would like to share with you is reconfiguration to a life of holiness and for mission today it depends on your fidelity to the charism, fidelity to the vision of the foundress, and fidelity to the mission of the church. Charism of a congregation is the soul of the congregation. Charism of a congregation is the lens through which we look at the world and we look at the mission of the church. And as we know, holiness and mission are not new to us. Holiness and mission come from our baptismal commitment. All the 16 conciliar documents of the church can be summed up into universal call to holiness and universal call to mission. So church is missionary by its very nature. Every religious congregation is missionary by its very nature. Without mission, there is no church. Without mission, there is no congregation. In fact, it is said, it is not that the church has a mission, mission has the church. Not that your congregation or my congregation has a mission, but mission has our congregation. And therefore, it's very important for us to understand mission is the essence of our consecrated life. The second reflection I would like to share with you is the reconfiguration to a life of holiness and mission is sometimes very challenging. It is not easy. Most of our congregations are today crippled by what's called the maintenance culture. What I mean by the maintenance culture is that we are so focused on our own needs and wants. We are focused on the needs of our members. We try to maintain ourselves. The focus is no more on the mission. The focus is no more on the charism. The focus is no more on the vision of the founder or the foundress. The third servant in the parable today, the servant who received 1 talent, is a clear example of a maintenance congregation or a maintenance church. What did he do? He received the talent and he was not at all interested in doing anything with it. He went, dug a hole and buried the talent. He buried the charism. He did not make use of it. He was sitting far away and he was focusing on his own safety and comfort zone. And we know what happened to him. The master said, "You wicked servant, you go out into the dark." And he lost all what he had. And that's what happens when our congregation, our community is a maintenance congregation or maintenance community where we all the time think of maintaining ourselves, not using the talent, not using the charism given to us. And thirdly, we find also in the gospel today 2 other servants, the one who received 5 talents and the one who received 2 talents. They are the best examples for a missionary church opposed to a maintenance church. And these 2 servants did everything they could to double the talents they received. They used the talent so well that they doubled it. Their life, their faith, their resources, all what they had, they used it so well that they doubled the talents and returned to the master. Now, this is the missionary church, a missionary congregation, where we are called constantly to go out to the periphery, not burying the talents and the gifts and blessings we have, but using them to proclaim God's mercy and God's love to a broken world and to a wounded world. I remember the words of St. John Paul II. He said, "Your being increases to the measure you give out yourself." Your being increases to the measure you give out yourselves. That's what the 2 servants did. They got an increase because they traded their talents, their charism. And the more we give ourselves to others, the more satisfaction we have in our religious life, in our community life. The less we give ourselves to others, we shrink in our religious vocation and commitment. Therefore, we are called to be a missionary church, a missionary congregation, and not a maintenance church or a maintenance congregation. And finally, the words of your foundress: "May your missionary style be humble, removed from powerful means and human wisdom," is echoed in the first reading today. St. Paul speaks about the church in Corinth. The message of Christ spread so rapidly in the church in Corinth because those who were called were foolish, were weak, were low and despised. The Bible is replete with examples how God chose the weak, the foolish, the low, the unattractive, the unqualified, the uneducated. Not because of any sociological reasons, but because of God's plan and purpose for His church. God calls the weak, the foolish, the unattractive, unqualified, the less impressive in the world for a reason, to let the world know that all your wisdom, all your expertise, all your knowledge, all what you have that impresses others amount to nothing if that does not lead you to God. And that's why God chooses the humble, the weak, and makes them strong and makes them wise, so that God can work through you and through me. And therefore, it is very important for us not to be discouraged by our own lack of resources, our lack of qualifications, or lack of our smartness, because God uses each one of us. We are powerful instruments in the hands of God, not because of our expertise, but because God has His grace poured into our hearts. Our call to be missionaries and our call to holiness. And I'm sure holiness is not the moral perfection, I would think. If that is the meaning of holiness, I don't think any one of us is holy if it is moral perfection. Holiness is nothing but our desire to possess God and to be possessed by God. Holiness is nothing but our desire to love God and be loved by God. You know, St. Francis de Sales, our patron, used to say, holiness is not perfection. Perfection, he said, is not the absence of imperfections. Sometimes we think we have to get rid of all our imperfections to be perfect. But Francis de Sales would say, perfection or holiness is your ability to accept your imperfections, your failures, your weaknesses, and struggle with them, trusting in God's mercy and love. And that is holiness, and that is perfection. God is not asking us to be perfect. God is asking us to be holy, to struggle with our imperfections, to struggle with our weaknesses and failures, so that God's grace alone will be sufficient for us. As you continue with your general chapter, I assure you of my praise. May God continue to bless you, to reconfigure yourself to a life of holiness and mission. Thank you, and God bless you.